Alright, we're back for the second round. And I'm not sure if Jerry's going to be sitting in on this one. Last one might have just been a treat. He may be going to bed. It is getting rather late here. Well, this is one of those hands with this deck that's a little awkward, but I mean, obviously if we draw a blue card, we have a protection spell with Force of Will. If we draw an infect guy, we potentially just kill him on turn 3. We'll keep it, see what happens. We have a lot of dig now in this version with 2 Preordains and a Ponder, as well as the 2 Jaces and 4 Brainstorms. So lead with Noble on the play. Hope we don't just get turn 1 from, I don't know, Charbelcher, Dredge, etc. If he's playing Burn or some deck with Lightning Bolt, we can potentially save our Noble Hierarch with an Invigorate. Alright, Elves. Well, we can definitely lose Elves with this hand, whereas Elves is normally a pretty good matchup, but... Alright, well, he doesn't have removal in his deck, so we're going to play the Brainstorm off of the land instead of the Noble. Wow, that was really, really good. So, I guess we'll just keep the 2 forces as our 1 counterspell and just try to kill him next turn. We can fetch, invigorate, and become immense next turn. So yeah, just mono perfect. Brainstorm was the best possible. Unless he goes main deck Cabal Therapy, flashback, he should be dead. And that's the power of Infect. Brainstorm is so insanely powerful in this deck. It's ridiculous. I guess to randomly play around potential Cabal Therapy, we could have brainstormed differently. We're going to let the Quirion Ranger resolve. He doesn't have Mana Guy in play, so even though it could gain him 1 mana if he doesn't have a second land, we're not afraid of that. We'd much rather counter something like Birchler Rangers, or if he plays land into Heritage Druid, we can counter that. We can also just like counter a... I don't think he can natural order here. He could potentially glimpse. He could go untap or bounce his land, play it, cast Birchler Rangers, tap 2 for what's it called? Glimpse of Nature, and then start comboing off that way. But since we have the Force backup, that's not a problem. So yeah, we'll just go for the kill. He has no cards in his main deck that can do anything here, and he has no active mana. So, alright, so we'll just play Invigorate on this guy. You gain some life. Pay 2 for this Become Immense, and show off a little bit. Still have this Force of Will. That was pretty great. That Brainstorm was absolute best possible, and drew into almost perfect. And that's the power of Infect. That was game 1. So game 2 is a little bit harder. He usually will have Abrupt Decay, Cabal Therapy, maybe even Thoughtseize to go along with that. We get access to Grafdigger's Cage and Submerge, and we generally get to get rid of our weaker counter spells like Spell Pierce and Daze. We still have 1 slot left after that. Pithing Needle doesn't seem all that great. It doesn't shut down mana abilities, but it can shut down Deathrite Shaman. Since he is likely to have a bunch of discard spells, we could bring in Sylvan Library, which actually doesn't seem all that bad. So we'll do that. Alright, so we're on the draw here for game 2, and even though our hand doesn't have an Infect guy, we do have this Brainstorm, which is hopefully going to be good. Help us find some stuff. The Jace is a little lackluster without Noble Hierarch, but we do have these 2 counter spells. I'm not super afraid of Deathrite. I want to mostly save Force Will for things like Glimpse of Nature, Natural Order, sometimes even Green Sun Zenith. But since we drew the Glistener Elf, and I want to wait a turn to crack my fetch land with the Brainstorm, we'll just play that instead. Glistener Elf is not phenomenal against these elf combo decks because it is a little tougher to bust through. You basically need Berserk to go along with your Invigorate, and sometimes even something more than that, like a Pendlehaven. So, you know, we could get a little lucky on our Brainstorm and just kill him with like another Invigorate and a Berserk, but that doesn't seem super likely. Not too afraid of this Elvish Visionary. We may burn a Force to counter a Zenith or something similar. We could have potentially countered it. Well, now I kind of just want to block and Invigorate. It doesn't seem terrible, actually. Since we are going to burn this fetch land, it shuts down his Gaia's Cradle, and this Invigorate might not do a whole lot. So I'm playing more for the late game than the early game, but I think it's worth it. Plus, if we draw a Noble Hierarch or Pendlehaven off of our Brainstorm, we can start attacking for 2. And since we're going to crack this fetch land more than likely, I think it's okay to get rid of that. Well, now we have 2 Vines to go with Inkmoth Nexus. Although I think I just want to... Alright, well, I'm going to keep all 3 blue cards so I can force and still maybe cast Jace. So that means putting back the 2 fetches, play the Inkmoth. I'm going to attack for 1 to just shut off his Elvish Visionary, which also could potentially shut off a flashback on Cabal Therapy. A lot of people are afraid to trade their infect creatures. This guy clearly fine with just getting crushed here with like triple Invigorate, but I mean that's pretty unlikely considering I burned 1 on turn 1, so, or his turn 2 rather. So we are going to, well, we might actually not shuffle away our 4th land since we do have this Jace. I don't really want to pitch it to the Force. And we do need another land to kick Vines of the Vastwood and activate Inkmoth Nexus, so I guess it's, we probably should have put both Vines on top and just kept the 2 fetch lands in hand so we don't get Cabal Therapy for Force into Cabal Therapy for Vines. Even if that is what ends up happening, it's not horrible. We could potentially force pitching Jace on a cast Cabal Therapy, and then if he flashes it back, it's very unlikely that he names Vines of the Vastwood, and it's also not terribly likely he, well, that was kind of weird. Alright, well, that leads me to believe that he has Swan Song in hand, so I think if we, yeah, I think that's actually fine. He tapped the Cradle instead of the Tropical Island, and some of these elf decks actually board into Swan Song, as well as the other discard effects. He needs another land to go bounce Visionary and recast it, and he's probably just going to try to play around, well, just try to not die basically from pump spells, which he's not going to. Our hand is pretty defensive here. We're okay trading Glistener Elf with either of these creatures if he would like to. He's likely going to block with Elvish Visionary and then bounce it, which we're okay with. Because next turn, if he doesn't play a land, we're going to be able to force pitch, I guess probably the other Force of Will and counter, and then he can't Swan Song. Now if he wants to trade, we're also okay with that. So yeah, it looks like he's not willing to do that. And we're going to, if he doesn't draw a land, we're going to force pitch Force, draw the land, cast Jace, probably bounce Wire with Symbiote to make his Gaia's Cradle worse. Well, that was really good, because now he gets to get Dryad Arbor, and then he's going to cast Visionary, and then probably start to chain off from there. He might also cast Therapy, which would be pretty gross. We could force pitch Force just so he doesn't know what our hand is. I think I'm okay with that. Because then he still taps this. Like, he's going to name Force of Will almost 100% anyway. And now he's just going to cast Elvish Visionary for 2 off the Cradle and the Trop. And then we're going to get to untap. And we can either hit him for 5 with the Inkmoth Nexus. and Vines and try to kill him next turn, or just cast Jace, Balance Wire with Symbiote, and try to slow him down a little bit. The odds of us dying to something like Natural Order Crater Hoof are pretty low, considering his hand probably is okay, yeah, so he's probably sitting on Swan Song. He has the Elvish Visionary for sure, and he's probably going to flashback the Therapy here now that I'm thinking about it, and he's probably going to name Invigorate, but he also might name Berserk. The odds of him naming Vines of the Vastwood are pretty low, and the odds of naming Jason Mind Sculptor is 0. It would be yeah, I mean, it's got to be as close to 0 as you can get. Almost no. I would say that Jace has almost never been in an Infect deck before, except maybe in a one-time side event by Tom Ross, where he was just trying it out. But I would say Berserk here, maybe. Invigorate, yeah. So that was the one he named. Now, he has Swan Song in hand almost 100%. Just the way he's been leaving up the Tropical Island. I guess it could potentially be Spell Pierce. If it's Spell Pierce, that's super awkward. But I'm going to assume that Swan Song, since that's what I've seen the most out of these elf deck sideboards that do play the blue. So we're going to bounce the Symbiote, try to slow him down a little bit, and then next turn try to I guess draw a bunch of with Jason, combo kill him. So the old unsummon button. He's at 3 poison. I guess we also could have offered the trade with Glistener Elf first. He may have declined, but if he accepted, that would actually be better for us. But I think we want to play it pre-combat regardless, because if he does have Spell Pierce over Swan Song, he does counter the Jason, then we don't really want to trade the Glistener Elf, but maybe we do. It's pretty tough, actually. No, he's going to play the other Symbiote that we bounced. Hopefully he doesn't have another 1-drop Elf, because then he can play that Cradle for 2, play Visionary, and start chaining off a little bit, and we're in a little bit of trouble. Alright, well, he's going to continue to hold up the blue for the Swan Song, so I guess we'll force him to use it. We're going to keep bouncing as long as he's doing that. So we'll go ahead and kick this Vines on this Glistener Elf, since he can't decay, and if he wants a Swan Song, that gives us more information on if we want to cast Glistener Elf or attack with Nexus. And I think we just want to attack with Nexus, because that'll put him at 5 poison. And next turn we can maybe just kill him with Vines on the Nexus. Okay, well, I think we want to play this other Glistener Elf instead, and he's saving the Swan Song, I guess. Not really sure for what, but we're going to hit him for 5, down to 8, and then if he only plays 1 creature, next turn we can just activate an attack and he takes 2 poison. We also have the option to bounce again, so he's going to have to either draw Cabal Therapy to hit our Vines and play a bunch of creatures, but that seems fairly unlikely. And we can also just brainstorm into Pendlehaven or Noble Hierarch and then attack with Inkmoth, and there's not a lot he can do about it with Swan Song. But I'm not sure if he has Swan Song, but that's just what I was putting on from how he was tapping his mana every single turn. It just seemed rather strange. But now I guess he's going to try to combo kill us here. But he has to get a little lucky if his hand was Symbiote, Elvish Visionary, and a bunch of reactive stuff like Swan Songs and whatnot. And Green Sun Zenith is not going to draw him a card, which is great. And if it just gets Dried Arbor, he's kind of stuck. So if he doesn't have anything here, like a land and a spell, then we just get to bounce Symbiote and attack for 3, and he's dead. Ooh, second Cradle. That makes a lot more sense. So now we can't do what we wanted to do. So what we can do is brainstorm with Jace, try to find any way to pump. And we also have the ponder too. I guess we should ponder first. The way if it's all bad, we shuffle and then we see an extra 3 cards. So we get to see 7 total. All right, we'll shuffle those away. Another Nexus. Invigorate. All right, great. All right, so Noble activate. I guess we could just. Yeah, I'm stupid. We just had the kill in hand with the vines. I don't even know what I was thinking. Alright, well, attack for 2. Yeah, I don't really know what I was doing. I was in so much tunnel vision from his Glimpse of Nature turn that I was trying to find ways to kill him when we just had the pump spell in hand. But luckily we found it and we didn't get punished for being stupid. I think it would have been pretty hard to lose that game. He was basically having to block with 2 creatures there, which turned off his Gaia's Cradle. If he did have a counterspell like Swan Song or something there, it seemed weird that he wouldn't cast it to counter the 4 extra poison he was getting from the Vines of the Vastwood. It did seem a little odd how he was tapping his mana. I just assumed he had a blue card sitting in hand for a while. It might have been Flusterstorm, and then we could have just paid for it, and it wouldn't have really done all that much. And Flusterstorm also doesn't counter Jace, which would make sense that it could be that. So tough to figure out there exactly what he was sitting on, but we ended up taking it down in 2, and we'll be back for the 3rd round in just a few.